I am fascinated by this topic, and no one ever talks about this, so I'm going to talk about it. Imagine this. Imagine going into a religious profession, not because you believed, but because it seemed like a decent career. I've never heard anybody talk about this, so I'm going to go ahead and start this conversation and see where it goes. So, at least in the Christian faith, there's this concept of, I heard the calling. God was calling me to become a minister, a pastor, a priest. I received the divine calling from God, and I'm going to follow the Lord. I'm going to go to seminary. I'm going to go through all these things, and I'm going to do that. That's what God is calling me to do. That's how it's stated. That's how it's phrased. I'm just saying, what if? What if a guy said, you know what? I'm 18 years old. I'm about to graduate high school. I think I want to become a pastor of a church. I want to make that my career. So he goes through college, he goes through seminary. He starts out as maybe a youth pastor, then he becomes a pastor of like this small kind of country church. Then after a couple years, people hear about this guy. They've seen his YouTube videos, they've seen his Instagram. He gets recruited for a bigger church. Not huge, but it's a bigger church. Puts in a couple years, he moves in, and eventually his goal is to have a mega church with maybe his own gift shop and books so that he can have his own side hustles, which definitely ensure his millionaire status and his status of fame as well. I'm just saying, what if a guy was not actually called of the Lord and decided this seems like a pretty good career? Granted, not anyone can do this, because I believe it takes a certain personality to have a mega church to begin with. There's a certain personality type that really is good at it. I think you have to be a good actor to some degree. Well, to a large degree, you have to be a good actor to be able to do something like that. So I'd have to believe that at some point this has happened, and there are pastors out there who are in this situation. Now, maybe they're not complete atheists. I can't imagine an atheist doing this, because I have learned that their opposition towards any kind of religion would be so strong. Even if they made lots of money and a good career, they still wouldn't do that. But I can imagine maybe at least a guy who isn't an atheist, at least he believes in God, but he's like, man, that's a good career move these days. I want to see how big of a church that I can pastor, because the more people in the church, the more money that would come in, because that's how I'm getting paid, and benefits and insurance, maybe a place to live, and all these things. See, that's fascinating to me. I think we should talk about this. And ultimately, I think here's what triggered this for me. You know how I am ultimately obsessed with making money, saving money, and investing money. Not having money, not being rich and just showing off all that I have. If I'm going to brag about something, I'm going to brag how much money I saved on it. Yes, I do have my dream vehicle, but I got it like maybe $9,000 under market value. And I had money in savings to pay for it. I didn't go in debt for it. So it's a different concept in the way that I am motivated by money. But with that being said, I was thinking, man, what if I was a pastor of a church? That'd be really weird for me, because I would ultimately be limited to the income bracket of that church and how much money came in. And I don't think I'd make a good pastor of a church. Now, granted, I think I could have made a good missionary. Had I just graduated college, went straight over to Thailand, lived the rest of my life in basically a hut, I would have been fine. But I graduated college, I was thousands of dollars in debt, I think $13,000. I had to start a career, and ultimately I ended up becoming very good at what I do. And I'm in the mindset, it's just so hard to imagine being a pastor of a church and being limited your finances to the size of your church, which is ultimately what would happen. But there have to always be that temptation of thinking, well, yeah, maybe I am called to that bigger church in Atlanta or Houston or wherever it is. Maybe that's where God's calling me. But it's got to be difficult to see beyond that and think, is this what God's calling me, or is it ultimately just the next career move? And I think that's got to be challenging. And again, it's got to be challenging for someone who has the brain that I have to be a pastor, because then I'd still want to be doing all these side hustles and making money on the side, in addition to how much money comes to the church. And that would be very challenging for a guy like me. So I don't know who my demographic audience of this video is, but ultimately, maybe someone who's just simply thinking about this too. Maybe there's even struggling pastors out there who are thinking, you know what? Maybe I'm not called. Maybe this was more of a career move, and maybe I see this now. It's funny because you don't really hear of pastors who aren't pastors anymore. Or if you do, it's really weird. It's really weird. Actually, I'll tell you an example, and then this is the end of the video. Last summer, when me and my dad were working on some home improvement here in my house while he was in town, we were at Lowe's, and the guy helping us with the paint told us that before he became a minister out in California, he worked with paint. He was an expert on painting and all this stuff, and he ran his own business. Then he became a pastor for 25 years, and now, once he became old enough to retire, he did. And now he's working over at Lowe's in the paint section in Spring Hill, Tennessee. It's so weird to think that someone can do anything beyond pastor church, but he retired and he still wanted to make some money. It's almost like if you were a pastor of a church, the only thing you could follow that up with would be like being a real estate agent. Okay, I'm fascinated by this topic. If you are, or you have anything to add to it, I think it's worth saying. I think it's worth exploring. This conversation is not existing outside of my YouTube channel. So let's keep it going within my YouTube channel in the comment section right here.